All right. Let's see. All right, we're probably going to have people joining as we get going. It is 8:05, so I'm going to start. Welcome to day 63, Tuesday, the 28th of November, for the AWD1000 Web Development Technologies class. Today, we're going to go over a couple React apps as a class. And as it says, we will continue to build them Wednesday and Thursday. Friday will be a lab as I'm off on Friday. And we're going to work on a React project starting next Monday. I haven't been sent it yet, so as soon as I am sent it, I'll let you know what it's all about. Now, some people still have not turned in their final test. I'd say probably half the class. You know who you are. I'm not naming names or anything. You can turn it in late, but you'll have points deducted. Now, if you think that's unfair, all right, probably about 2 weeks from today, you are all going to get an online course evaluation. You've heard about this before. I never see what you write down. They are totally anonymous. It is a 3-part evaluation. You evaluate the class. In other words, did it do everything it was supposed to do? You evaluate the book, or books in this case. Did they do what they were supposed to do? And you evaluate the instructor. Did he do what he was supposed to do? All I've ever asked is that people be honest. The only way I can improve is via constructive criticism. Some things I cannot change, all right? Such as this class is taught the same way that it's taught at the St. Louis campus. The assignments are the same. The due dates are the same. If anything, I'm probably a little bit more lenient on the due dates than they are at the St. Louis campus, but the work is all the same that gets assigned. All right. So like I said, I cannot change that stuff. I always remember this because a few years ago when I taught at a different college, someone wrote down, I don't like his voice. Well, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. All right. And if you can't tell right now, and I mentioned it the other day, I'm fighting a cold. I've got bronchitis symptoms right now. I'm going in at 5 o'clock this afternoon to see my doctor. All right. So again, your test was due yesterday. You can turn it in late, but you'll get a points penalty. People say, well, what kind of penalty? It depends on how late it is. That's all I can tell you. It's graded both on when it's turned in and the quality of the work. All right. That's the best thing that I can tell you. All right. So we've been talking about React, and the time has come to actually start to do something. So literally give me a second here, because I'd like to clean up my desktop. Should have done this before, didn't do it before. So just give me a second and then we will get started. All right. Don't worry, I'll just let this move the stuff over. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to come up and on this empty part of my desk, I'm going to, all right, and I'm going to call it BMI React application. All right. What I'll do is when I get done, I'll put this out on GitHub so you can see it. You can just watch. You don't have to type anything in unless you want to follow along. That's totally up to you. Well, and for some reason it didn't take my name. So let's try it again. How about this? BMI JPS, because those are my initials. All right, there we go. So I've got an empty folder here on my desktop called BMI JPS. All right. So what am I going to do with that? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in I'm going to come in and I'm going to open up the folder that I just created, BMI JPS. I'm going to open it up in code. There's nothing in there. That should make sense to everybody. All right. Now, what I'm about to do right now, I could go out and just bring up a session of Git like we've been doing in class, or I can do it from right here. It's a little easier to do it this way. So I'm going to go and click my up here, view, and I'm going to go to terminal. And that has opened up a terminal for me right here. This is the same thing as if I went in here, double clicked on this, right mouse clicked and chose Git Bash here. I've just done the same thing, but I've done it from inside of Visual Studio Code. All right. Okay. So I want to come in and I want to create a new React application. And right now, as you can see, there is nothing in here. This is an empty folder. So I'm going to put in the command to start creating stuff. And what you'll notice as we do this is the folder will start getting stuff in it. So the command is npx, all right, create React app. So what I'm doing is I'm calling this command, create React app, and I'm calling it using the node package manager. In this case, I use npx. Okay. And I'm already where I want it to go. I'm in a folder called BMI JPS, and it's already got its name. So I can just hit a period here, which means create a React app and put it right where I currently am. So I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to start doing a bunch of stuff because it's going to be loading a bunch of stuff right now. As it says, this might take a couple minutes. It takes anywhere, depending on the speed of your connection, from maybe 1 minute to up to 5 minutes. You can see it's already created the first file, package.json. It's going to create a folder called node_modules, and it'll create a few more things as well. Now you can see it says here installing React, React DOM, and React scripts with CRA template. So it's bringing React into the program. All right. It's bringing React into the program. It's bringing the React document object model into the program. It's bringing in those scripts into my program and some kind of a template. All right. Now, when it gets all done, it says happy hacking. And it says, basically you're here if you want to start stuff. Now, what you'll notice when you look here is now it's all this stuff. We went over this yesterday. I want to go over it again, but very, very, very briefly. All right. This node modules, it's a folder that holds all of the public files and dependencies that this program might need. All right. Public is where I'm going to end up doing some of my work. You'll see it in a minute. Right now, the only thing that's in there that we care about is the index.html file. We looked at this yesterday. This is where all of the output of my program is going to go. All right, in just a bit. All right. Oops, try that again. Then we've got source. And these are our main files in which we're going to do a bunch of work in just a couple minutes. Some of them we don't need, so we're going to get rid of them. All right. This is git ignore. So this says basically, if I take this application that I've got right here and I try to push it out to the internet, all right, so that the world can see it, what files should I not push along with it? All right. Now, these two files are intimately related to one another. There's package.json, and it's got basically everything in here that I need to get started with a React program. All right. Then I've got a package lock JSON. What that does is it says for all these files that you're using in package JSON, it lets you know the version of the file that is being used. Now, that may make very little sense to you, and it really and truly is okay if it doesn't make a lot of sense to you. But what I've done is I've created all the stuff I need to get started. And if that makes any sense to you, that's about all I can expect from here. All right. Now, I've done nothing. You can see that I've done nothing. But if I come in here and I type in npm start, hoping it doesn't give me an error today. That's good. This is again what I get out of the box. Not very much. That's the logo for React, the thing that's spinning around. And it says that if I want to change what's showing on here, I can edit the file under my source folder called app.js and save it, and it'll immediately upgrade this. In addition, if I want to learn more about React, I can go right here. Now, we didn't even look at that, but reactjs.org. This is the React homepage. Not very pretty, but very, very functional. And there are a lot of things in here. I'm not going to go over any of them. I will tell you that if you go to the Learn, there is about a 75-page project in here where you build tic-tac-toe using React. Kind of interesting. I've gone through it. I've done it before. But then there's references and a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to go over any of it, though. All right. I'm going to stop the run. And remember, hopefully you remember from yesterday, that this program is running now, and it's running right there. But it's running on my local machine. So when you see local host like that, it means it's running on your machine. So right now you can see it because you can see the picture on my machine, but I can't share it with you right now. All right. I will be able to a little bit later, but let's not even talk about that right now. And I mentioned yesterday that what happens is React tries to be greedy and it tries to use port 3000, like you see right there. If port 3000 is being used, one of two things will happen. Either React will come back and say the port is busy. Would you like to use a different port? And if you say yes, it'll try for 3001. If that's being used, it'll try for 3002, etc. Or you'll get a message that says React needs port 3000 to run. If you get that message, that means you've already got a React app running on port 3000. To stop that app from running, you don't just boom, go in and click the X button over here. No, you typically go in and you type in npx kill minus port 3000. That means that if anything is running on that port, stop it from running. All right. So it'll be one of those two things will happen. All right. What I'm going to do is, for now at least, I'm just going to stop it. All right. I've just stopped it. Okay. Why? Well, there is stuff that's in here that I really and truly do not need. All right. And what I mean by that is if I come in here to source, there are some files in here that I don't need. Now, does it hurt to leave them in? Not at all. Not a bit. But they're just kind of a waste of space, for lack of better words. So whenever I start a new project, the first thing I do is I come in and I say, okay, what don't I need here? I don't need app.test.js. I don't need this logo. That's that spinning logo. I don't need report web vitals. I don't need setup tests. So I don't need those 4 files. Now, some people, there's 2 different CSS files here, and we'll talk about the difference between them in just a bit. Some people put everything in app.css and remove index.css. Some people put everything in index.css and remove app.css. I'm just going to leave them all the way they are, but I'm going to get rid of these 4 files. All right, I've highlighted them all. I'm going to right mouse click and choose delete. And it says, are you sure you want to delete these 4? I am. Now, what you'll notice is I now have an error in my program. And the reason I have the error is that I had that image, the React image, and I've removed it. All right, so let's fix this all up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into app.css here. And typically what people do, I mentioned this before, is I'm going to have an app.css and an app.js, and it can be very confusing. So most people come in and make this a little a. All right. Everything else that's in here, this is all stuff for the logo. We don't need it. This is what's making it spin, etc. We don't need any of that stuff. So I'm just going to remove it all. Technically, since all I'm doing is a text align center, I could put this in my index.css and just remove this file, but I'm going to leave it there. All right. So that's all that's in here right now. So file, save all. Now, if you notice, now I've got 2 errors. All right. We're going to fix those right now. All right. Well, let's look at how we have to fix those. Well, if I go to app.js, notice it says import logo. We don't have that logo anymore. So I'm going to remove that. So that is now gone. Now it says import app.css. That should be okay because that file is right there. All right. Now in here, this is basically want to stuff into right there. What we want to stuff into the div with an ID of root is everything that we have under source app.js. And you'll notice, again, this is part of the reason I'm getting the error, because it's trying to use that logo. And we just removed the logo. So what I'm going to do is inside of here, I'm going to keep the div and remove everything that's inside of it. All right. And right now, that's all that's in there. Now I'm still getting errors. Why? I'm going to show you. But what I want to do is I'm just going to replace this with hello. That's it. All right. Now I'm going to go to index.css. And there shouldn't be anything in here. There's hardly anything in here, but there's nothing in here that would break my program. This is just setting margin, font family, etc. So that looks okay. So let's go to index.js. All right. And again, notice I've got this report vitals. I removed that. So that's gone. All right. Then down on the bottom, it's calling that report vitals, which I removed. So that's gone. All right. Now, I don't know if I fixed everything. It's still complaining here, but I'm going to do a file, save all. And now notice Webpack compiled successfully, which means that if I go back and run this program again, what I should see on my screen is the word hello. All right. So if I say npm start, and there's my hello. Now, that is not gee whiz, that is not wow or whatever, but I'm trying to show you what's kind of cool about this is what this does. If I go back to app.js and I've got hello, and I say hello out there, all right? And I just save. I'm not going to rerun my app or anything. I'm going to do a save all. And I go back. Notice it immediately updated my program. React works with what's called the virtual DOM. So it makes a copy of the document object model and it updates that, and then it updates the DOM based on that. That may not sound like a very big thing, but it is very important. And the reason that it's important is when you work straight with the DOM, with the document object model, the DOM works very well when you program, but historically, the DOM is very slow to update things. But since we're working with a virtual DOM in React, what React does is it copies the entire DOM and then it says, okay, what's changed? And it only writes back what is changed. When you use the quote regular DOM unquote, it copies everything in. And even if you've only changed a line, it's got to copy everything back out again. That's why it can take so long. All right. Now that may have made very little sense to you. And if it did, that's if it, if it didn't make a lot of sense, that's okay. It really and truly is. All right. But what I'm going to start to do in here, it's up to us. It's kind of like when we develop a web app. Do we want to write our JavaScript first and then write our HTML and then write our CSS? Do we want to write all of our HTML first, then our CSS, etc.? The only difference is we only have one line of HTML, and that's that div I showed you. So the bottom line is, what do we want to do next? All right. Do we want to come in and do we want to write our CSS? Okay. Or do we want to come in and start writing our JavaScript right away? And again, it is a personal type of decision. All right, I'm going to stop the run. I'm going to come over to here. And what I'm going to do is first tell you that this app.css right here, there's really nothing we have to do in that file. There's really nothing we have to do with it. All right, we can put other stuff in it, but really everything that was in it that we were using was all for the logo, other than this text align center. So that one's kind of nice because basically I'm done with it already. All right. So I'm going to go to this index.css file that's right here. Let me close some of this stuff up, make this a little smaller so you can see hopefully what's going on. So what are we doing here? This is all boilerplate stuff. What that means is this is all stuff that the system gave to us. Notice it uses a default font family for any text we put in. It uses a different font family for any code that we actually put in. All right. And then it does a bunch of system settings for us, and it turns off any margin. All right. I'm going to take all that stuff that's there and just leave it alone. I'm going to add my own stuff down here. So I'm going to put a comment up here that says, now this is CSS. So it's going to say React provided CSS code. All right. And now I'm going to put my own code down here. All right. Not a lot, but a few lines in here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Remember, this is kind of like going to be our reset. Even though we've already turned it off, I'm going to say box sizing, border box. And then even though we've already turned them off, I'm going to make sure that margin is set to 0 and padding is set to 0. All right. So that's my own little reset that removes any margin that we have, any padding that we have. And remember what this does. I'm going to explain it right now. If it does not make sense, look it up on W3 Schools. All right. But if I go and put something into a paragraph, let's say, and I surround that paragraph with margin and I surround that paragraph with padding. All right. This says that when you're figuring out the size of the paragraph, only use the text in there. Do not add the margin or the padding to the actual size of what's in that box. That's what box sizing basically is. All right. Now, even though you probably thought you might be done with it, I'm going to come in here and this is my app. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say display flex. And I'm going to do a flex direction column and a justify content center and an align items center. So in other words, I'm going to try to center what I'm going to do on the screen. All right. Next, I'm going to say width 100% and height 100%. I want this to take up my entire screen. All right. Okay, I'm going to put everything inside of a container. So I'm going to put dot container. So I'll have a class called container, and I'll give it a little bit of a border radius, a little bit of a rounding effect, and some padding. All right, so that's my container that's going to hold everything. Now I haven't created it yet, so this isn't right now, really isn't doing much of anything because I haven't put in the associated code yet. But we're about almost half done already. So I'm going to have two input boxes in here. One in which I'm going to put my height, one in which I'm going to put my weight. So for those input boxes, all right, I'm going to give them a width. I'm going to give them a font size, some padding. All right. Now, when I first did this, I used pixels instead of rems. Remember, pixels are an absolute unit of measure. Rems are a relative unit of measure. So originally this said padding 10px, 4px, but I converted them over so they would be relative in size. All right, add some margin, some more border radius, and finally a font weight bold so that it would kind of stand out. All right, so that's everything that's being set up for my inputs. And as you know, typically, if you've got an input box like that, also have a label. So I could put the label above it or below it. Let's just put it above it. So I'm going to say here, label. And for my label, again, I'll make sure it's text align center. Again, font weight bold. And I'll give it a font size. All right. So I've got everything. I'm almost finished, but I'm also going to have buttons in here. So my interface is basically going to be in here, a label that says height and an input box, a label that says weight and an input box, and a couple buttons. All right. One button will basically do the calculation. One button will reset the form. And then I'll have my output that'll go down below it. All right. So my buttons will have a class of BTN. And I'll just show you. I'll put the stuff in here and then we'll talk about it. Whoops. Need a colon there. Oh, now again, this is setting up the stuff for my buttons. And what you'll notice is most of it looks very similar to everything else. The widths are pretty much the same size. The font size is the same. The margin is zero auto to try to center the buttons. There is some padding. The background color for the button will be black. The text on the button will be white, just changed it up a little bit. It'll have a border around it and it'll be somewhat rounded. And when you put your mouse on the button, it'll change to a pointer. All right, I've got about 10 more lines and then we're done with this. I put in a class called Centered, which isn't going to make a lot of sense until we get into the program. Right, I had some paragraphs in here. Again, I just gave them a little margin. All right. And there are going to be images in here. And I had an image container class. Again, I just said text align center. And then for the image itself, give it a size. Okay, that's it. Now that's everything for my index. So far, we did basically nothing inside of the app.css. Now we just worked on the index.css. So the two files that we'll have to change in here are going to be index.js and app.js. And actually, that's not even really that true. And what I mean is, let's go back to here. All right, I can close app.css. I can close index.css. My index.js right here, I'm not expecting this to make a boatload of sense to you, but this says bring in React. This says bring in the React DOM. This says bring in everything from the index.css file. This says bring in everything from the app.js file. This says what I'm going to put everything into is in my index.html file, and it's in wherever I've got the ID equal to root. And this says, okay, that's what I want to do. So what I want to render in there is everything that's in my app.js file. All right. Now there's different modes, as you can see right here, and this is strict mode. The bottom line, though, is this. Guess what? I'm not going to change anything in here. Nothing. All the work that I'm going to do right now will be in two different things. The first will be I'm going to come into app.js so I can close this. So right now there's almost nothing in there. It just says hello out there. We're going to start making major changes to this right now. And in fact, when we get done, this will be somewhere over 100 lines long. Then when we get done after that, the only other thing for me to do is going to be I've got an image of an underweight person, an image of a optimal weight person, an image of an overweight person, and an image of an obese person. They're little cartoonish images. We're going to have to add those. And once we do that, the program will be complete. All right. So right now, what this says is, hey, in my program, app.js, I want to be able to use anything that I've defined in app.css that you just looked at. Import means bring that file in. but I want to bring in something else also. So I'm going to come up to the top here and I'm going to say import React use state from React. Now, do I expect this to make sense to you? No. Sorry, I just don't. All right, but let's talk about what's in here. First of all, I spelled that wrong. It should be the word use. There we go. So first of all, this right there, technically, with the latest version of React, that isn't mandatory anymore. React that you see right there in blue is automatically brought into your program for you. I've just been doing this long enough that I still bring it in anyway. Now, so should you care? All I'm telling you is if I left this off right there, if I got rid of that, this program would still work just fine. All right. Now, the other thing I do need, and this right here, when you've got something that you bring into a program, into a React program that starts with the word use, USE, like you see right there. All right. What happens is it's called a React hook, and it allows you to come in here and not here, but up here. I'm going to write a bunch of code in here and very little code in here. But the code that we put in here is going to allow us to manipulate what shows on our screen. And to be able to use that, all right, and to be able to set the height, to set the weight, to set the BMI, and to set our message underweight, overweight, optimal weight, obese, we're going to need to use state for each one of those. So that's what we're going to end up doing up here. Now you'll notice if you just saw that, if I put my mouse over this, it's giving me a warning. It says, hey, you declared state, but you're never using it. I'm going to do that right now. All right. So we're going to start using it in here. Now, a lot of the code that we write in here will look to you like JavaScript code you already know. Some of it will look different. All right. So some will be the same and some will be different. All right. Okay. So let's literally, let's just come in and start writing. And everything that we've got in app here, this line says export it. What does that mean? That means that anybody who needs this has to import it. What does that mean? Well, if I come back in here into my index.js, notice what we're bringing in. That brings in everything in the app.js file, and this says to render everything that we set up in the app.js file. So these things that you see in here, they all work together, for lack of better words, kind of in unison with one another. All right. Now, I'm going to put in a bunch of code. I'm going to go till 9 o'clock and then we'll take a break. But if for some reason, and I don't know why this would happen, but if for some reason I put code and it doesn't work, I don't know why that wouldn't happen, because I'm going off a working version that I have. I'll bring up the working version just so you can see it, so you can be assured that indeed what I'm showing you does work. All right, so I'm going to start by coming in here and I'm going to set some constants. This will look almost virtually identical to what we've done in the past. So const min height equal 12, const max height equal 96, const min weight equal 1, max weight equals 777. The minimum weight that you can be to be optimal, all right, is 18.5. The minimum weight you can be to be overweight is 25, and the minimum weight you can be to be obese is 30. These are all things that we've looked at before. So far with what we've done, this looks almost like just a regular JavaScript program. Well, here is where it's going to start to change. All right. Because these are our program constants, but these are our program, I call them range constants. So the range of a height is 12 to 96. The range of a weight is 1 to 777, etc. But I'm going to add four more constants in here, and they're going to be program state constants. All right. So I'm going to put those right here. Grab that, just copy it 3 times. I'm going to get errors until I change the names. So now you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to line everything up just so you can see what goes kind of with what. All right. Now, this is where it changes from quote regular JavaScript unquote. All right. Now, I'm going to sit and have 4 variables in my program that you see right here. All right. And those 4 variables are going to be height, weight, BMI, and message. Message is going to hold the text underweight, overweight, optimal weight, or obese. All right. And you'll notice whenever I want to actually set that, okay, whenever I actually want to put a value in there, if I want to put in a value for height, I'm going to have to use set height. If I want to put in a value for weight, I'm going to have to use set weight, etc. And to start with, height has a default value of 0. So does weight. BMI has no value. It's the empty string. And the message has no value. It's the empty string. I could have set the BMI to 0. I could have done that. But there is no BMI yet because I haven't created one. All right. And that's why it's done the way that it's done. All right. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to come in and I'm going to start writing some routines. Okay. So notice I'm still in this function called app. It starts here, it ends down here. So everything I'm doing inside of this function called app. And one thing I can do in there is in that function, I can write other functions. All right. What do I mean? It's easiest to show you. All right. So I've got all this stuff that you see in here. I've shown you my program range constants and my program state constants. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start writing some functions. It's I'm going to write some code and then I'll go back and we'll discuss every single line that's in here. So right here, as you probably have already guessed, I'm doing a range check for both the height and the weight. I'm making sure that whatever values I put in there are within range. If they're not, I tried to keep this program as simple as possible. I'm just going to put in an alert. And that alert should say, please enter a valid height 12 to 96 and weight 1 to 777. All right, I'm letting the user know what those are, for lack of better words. And I'm going to return because there's no sense in going on. I put in something that's out of range. So if I put in a height that's less than 12, or I put in a height greater than 96, or I put in a weight that's less than 1, or I put in a weight that's greater than 777, I'll get that message. I'll return. I'm done. But if I get down to here, well, you should know I put in two valid numbers. All right. That's all I know is I put in two valid numbers. I don't know what they are. I mean, I could have put in numbers that are just weird. In other words, for the height, I could have put in 12. And for the weight, I could have put in 777. But that's not what the program is designed to do. To say whether or not those values make sense or not. It's just to say, have I put in valid values or have I not put in valid values? All right, so when I get down to here again, these have been valid values. So I can set let BMI equal, and again, you've heard this from me before. There's different ways of writing that BMI formula. All right, but okay, that's let BMI equal that. Well, wait a minute, we're not even using this. All right, let's use that right now. All right. So that is the first time in here that I am setting state. The state of what I'm working on, there's four things in here basically with state: height, weight, BMI, and message. All right. And this is the first time we set one of them. Now, we want to come in here now and we want to be able to set our message: underweight, overweight, etc. So and again, remember what that says is BMI less than 18.5? All right. If it is, we know that that person is underweight. So we're going to do a set message to underweight. And don't worry about this because we're going to have to add this in just a bit. Oops. Now, if I were to come in and run the program now, I'd get an error because I don't have a folder called assets. And in that folder, I'll have to put in my pictures of underweight, optimal weight, overweight, and obese people. All right, we'll do that in just a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to copy these so you don't have to watch me type. And this person is optimal weight. And this will be optimal weight as well. All right. So next, hmm, this will be our overweight. All right. Finally, we have one more. Now I could put it in as just an else, but I said else if BMI is greater than or equal to min obese, which says, is BMI greater than or equal to 30.0? And in that case, this is obese, and so is this. So I am now handled everything, all right? But, all right, one thing I didn't do yet, I'm saying all this stuff, image source requires this, image source requires that, etc. All right. And when I did this, I had some problems putting this here. I'm going to leave it here, but I'm going to basically do some repeating down here. All right. And I think we'll check it afterwards. I think I'm going to be able to come in and remove all of these lines, but we'll check in just a bit. All right. Now let IMG SRC. What is that? That's our image source. We could have called it anything, but you know as well as I do that when you've got an image tag, that one of the first things you put in there is source equal. All right. So I'm just basically declaring the variable right there. So this should never happen. But what I'm saying is, hey, if there's a BMI that's less than 1, don't show anything. I'm gonna grab all of these. So I've just repeated basically what I've just shown you. All right. Now, there's only one more line of JavaScript that we have to put in here, and that's going to be right here. Well, actually it's a couple lines, but we're going to have a clear button, and when you press the clear button, this is what's going to happen. It's going to reload the form. All right. Which is basically exactly what I want to have happen right there. All right. Hopefully, I didn't misspell anything else along the way, but we'll find out. All right. So now the interface has to be built. The logic is now in there, but right now, all this is doing is it's saying hello out there. And I don't want that. All right. So what I want to do is I've got probably about 30 lines of code I've got to put in here. All right. But it is not. Let's come back at 9:15. We'll write this, we'll run this, and then we'll go into our next example. All right. So I will see you in 15 minutes. I got to refresh my water, so I'll be right back. All right, it is 9:15, so I'm going to start back up. I added comments throughout the program. We've already gone over what the range constants and state constants were. Again, range check. Then I said here, inputted height and weight both valid, calculate the body mass index, and then determine the status based on the BMI. And here was adding the associated image. So the only thing to do then is to come in here and basically build the UI that we want to put in here. All right. Well, remember, you can only return one thing. This is what we're returning is this div, but we can put anything inside of there that we want, including more divs. And that's what I'm going to do a lot of in here. So now the first thing for you to notice in here is we don't say class equal. We've been working with IDs and we've been working with classes, but you don't say class equal, you say class name equal. And the reason for that, the reason that you use class name, all right, is if we were to put class in there, it would think it's you are creating a JavaScript class, not that you're working with a CSS class. So you've got to use the word class name instead of class. All right. So and again, this is saying this will be an H2 tag. I'm going to use that centered class that I defined out in my app.css. All right. And it'll be called BMI calculator. All right. And then inside of there, and whenever I submit that form, what I want to have happen is I want it to call calculate BMI. All right. And again, as you'd probably imagine, this is going to hold all the form components. So again, it's going to have a few more divs in it. So now I should have done more work prettying this up probably than I did. So I actually put in some break tags here and there. All right, just so you know that. All right. In fact, here, when you're working inside of here, remember this is JSX that we're writing in here. This is not pure HTML. So when I put in that BR tag like this, I get an error. And the error on here says BR has no closing tag. So when you put in a BR tag inside of React, you must put an end thing in there like that. Okay. Try that again. Height. I'm putting this on multiple lines because I want you to be able to see what's happening here. I think when I save this, it's going to be all over the place, but all right. Now, what I just put in may make very little sense. Okay, so let's break it down and take a look at everything that's in here. All right, this is saying this is just a typical label, so it'll say height, inches, but this in English is saying whenever we change the value that we have in there for height, whenever we change it, call set height. And we have to do that because we have to validate and verify that the value that we're putting in there for that is between 12 and 96. That's exactly what we're doing right there. All right. Now, again, just to try to make it a little easier here, I'm going to copy that and paste it in down below it because now we've got weight. And the weight will be in pounds. All right. And this will have to be a W, as will this. Okay. But now I've got, it's the same thing. But now I've accorded for, or accounted for, I should say, both my height and my weight. So the only thing to put back into this form, the only thing left are my buttons. All right, that'll be my submit button. And again, I'll put a BR tag on the end of it. All right. And then I'm going to have another one, and that's going to be my reset button. So in other words, when I click that, I basically want everything to clear out, for lack of better words. I don't know what happened there, but that's fine. And when that happens, when I click that button, I don't want to just put in here reset or clear, but what I want to say here, type is reset on click equal reload. Now I can say reset. All right. A button, and for some reason I lost the ending tag there. Okay. Almost finished. But what I need to do is down at the bottom. So this is underneath my form. This is where I want to have all of the stuff print, show, whatever you want to say here. So this is under my form right there. It's under my form. All right. And hopefully you notice whenever I wanted to print out the value of something, I put it in curly braces. All right. And if I didn't do that, then what would happen would be, since this is HTML inside of JavaScript, it would think that's just the word BMI and that's just the word message, which of course would be wrong. All right. So there's that centered stuff, just a little bit more. And believe it or not, that's everything. And when I'm done, it's going to export everything that was between the beginning function app and between the end of the function app. Now, if I run it, I'm going to get errors. Let me quickly explain why and how we will fix that. All right. So it's all been saved. It threw it all over the place now because I've got Prettier loaded on my machine. All right. But right now, I have nothing in here there is nothing in here right now that is actually holding, for lack of better words, all right, there is nothing in here that is actually holding the my images. All right. So I have to put something in there that will hold my images. Now, I don't remember, unfortunately, what was in. Let's see if I'm going to look at the finished product here. That's great. Well, we'll try putting it where I think it goes. And if it doesn't, we'll move it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a new folder. All right. And that folder is going to be called assets. So in here, I'm just clicking down on the bottom and I'm telling, oops, I didn't want to do that. Click there. And I'm telling the system to make a new folder that's called assets. And this is typically, you make a folder called assets. That typically is where you put your images. Now, I have to find the images. All right. Boy, I wish I'd done a better job than I did here, but we're going to get it to work. I've got two sets of images. One set is ugly and one set is not. And right now I just found the ugly set. So if I have to use those, I will. Good. These are the right ones. Boom. So those are my 4 images. I'm going to just manually copy them into here and into my assets folder. Paste. Now, again, these could be in the wrong place. I don't know for sure, but we're going to find out very shortly. So this is my program right now, BMI JPS. All right. And that program is, BMI JPS. There it is. So I'm going to do a file save in here because that's where I just put all my stuff. All right. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to see if I can run it or if I get errors. All right. So to do that, I'm again going to go in and bring up my terminal. All right. Down here, make it a little bigger so you can see what's going on and make this a little narrower. There we go. And in here, I'm just going to say npm start. Now, if I get errors, we'll just see if we can figure out what they are. All right. Well, you can see there's errors. So let's see what we've got. It says cannot resolve source assets. Okay, it says it put the folder in the wrong place. Okay, that's not a big thing. Let's see if we can fix that error right away. So it wants this assets folder that I added here. It wants it inside of source. All right. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to say cut. And I'm going to go over to here and I'm going to say paste. All right. It already went and recompiled it and it says there's one warning, but that's not bad. So let's go back and look, and there it is. Well, some reason that didn't get see. So the height and the weight did not get centered. They should be over here, but let's try it once. So if we say a person is 72 inches and weighs 100 pounds, they should be underweight and they should be an underweight picture here. I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can see everything. Submit. There we go. Underweight. Reset. Set everything again. If we say the person is 72 inches and weighs 175 pounds, their optimal weight. If they're 72 inches and they weigh 210 pounds, they are overweight. And if they are 72 inches and they weigh 333 pounds, they are obese. The pictures aren't great, but they all work. All right. If I put in something, I leave these blank, I get my alert that says, please enter a valid height, 12 to 96, and weight 1 to 777. Appears as though everything's working. Let's see if we can fix this. All right. So everything that was in there, let's see. That was the height and the weight right there. Let's see if I come in here and say this. Class equals centered. Whoops, right there. That should figure out, do the height stuff. And then this should do the weight stuff. All right, so let's, in fact, I don't even have to. I just bring it back up and you can see now it's looking more the way it's supposed to look. All right, I should have set that up so there was nothing in here to start with, but it's not a big thing. So again, if I put in person is 60 inches and weighs 100 pounds, they are of optimal weight. Looks like I spelled weight wrong. All right. If I bring it in and I say they're 45 pounds, they should be severely underweight. All right. And if I say they're 140 pounds, they're overweight. And if I say 240 pounds, they're obese. So it appears as though right now everything is working. All right. And to be honest with you, with what I just did, that's about all I can ask for. Now, I want to do one more thing, and then we'll go back and look at it again. The one more thing I want to do is I put this in there twice, all that image source. So it's right here. So I want to see if I can take the ones that were here and I can comment those out and if the program still works. All right, so I'm going to do a file, save all. Sometimes the easiest way to tell after you've done that is to just go down. I guess I've lost my terminal, but to come in here and just see if it's showing any errors or not. All right, so but I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to refresh and let's see if it still works. And it is. So I don't need those lines that I had up above. Now you might say, looking at the code, okay, I kind of get that, but why did you have to have them down here? Why couldn't you put them up here? The answer is we probably could have, but then this is where we declared the image source, so it didn't know about it until then. I probably could move this up to the top of the program and then leave these in here and remove these. All right. I'm not going to mess with a good thing. It's now working. If you want to play with it, feel free to do so. Okay. Now, what I want to say one more thing, and I know I've said this before, but I want to say it again. That at least a couple of you in this class next semester will be taking AWD1011. All right, and that class is known as Database Driven Website Web Development 1. In that class, you learn what's called the MERN stack. Well, what you are learning right now is the R from the MERN stack. The M in there stands for MongoDB. It's a type of database. If you don't know what this is, that means you have not yet taken the AWD1100 class, the C# class. So you'll take that in spring. And probably 2/3 of the way into that class, you'll learn all about databases. All right. When you go into this class, the AWD1111 class, you build a project throughout the semester in there. Okay, it's called a bug tracker, BUG. And when I say bug, I mean program bugs. And you create the whole thing, and you create it using what's called Express and Node.js. Those allow you to go and utilize and build and work with JavaScript on the server. Once you get those down, you want to be able to save whatever it is you're working with. So you save the stuff for your bug tracker into a MongoDB database. When you get to that point, you have, for lack of better words, an extremely ugly user interface. So the last thing you learn in that class is React. And you put all four of those things together, all right, and you make this bug tracker work and you give it a nice looking interface. Then you put it out on the internet. Pretty much is your semester project. All right. A lot of it is done together with the instructor. Some of it is done with, the instructor gets you to a certain point and then you take it over from there. All right. So like I said, this program in the way it looks right now, so just a file, save all. All right, I'm going to close that now. That program will be put out onto, all right, this program will be put out onto GitHub. All right, and it will be put out onto GitHub right around the end of class today. All right, now, one more thing I want to do today, and I'm going to start and close that now. I'm going to go over 2 articles with you. Okay. And the first one, as you can see, and I'll send you links to both of these. It's called API 101 a beginner's intro. And again, we're going to go over this. You might not understand a lot of it. And also, it may seem to contradict some of the stuff I told you previously, guys. Okay? Don't worry about that. This is a very short article. It really and truly is. It's 3 or 4 pages long on APIs. So, as you can see, as it says there, APIs are an essential part of modern web development. No, I'm not going to read this entire article to you. All right. This is kind of what's important. An API acts as a bridge or a messenger between software applications. Like what, Jeff? Like, for example, next semester, those of you who are in the C# class, you will have to have your C# code that you write communicate with a Microsoft database. You'll use basically an API to do that. All right. Now, when I defined an API, it wasn't this definition. I said it was kind of a contract between you and the software. And believe it or not, it sort of is the same thing. But in this case, you're the other end of the software. So if you want to use an API, all right, you have to know how to call what's available in the API, and you have to do it that way. And if you do that in that way, all right, it'll give you information. Now, not right now, but tomorrow, we're going to go in and we're going to look at one, or if we have time, two different things when we go out and make calls, make API calls. There'll be another article we're going to look at in just a minute. I'm going to start to go over this with you, but I'm going to ask that you try it. It's very, very do this, then do this, then do this. So if you want to learn this stuff, and let's face it, whether you learn it next semester or the semester after that, you have to learn it to get through this program. All right. So it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to go through this. Now, as they mentioned in the next paragraph down, an important aspect of APIs is that they are typically associated with JSON. JSON is nice in that it is basically a way of presenting data that's understood by most popular software packages that are used today. All right. And as it says, then you can use JSON to populate your application. You can fetch or go out to the internet and grab anything. Now, this is one that I wrote with my classes a couple years ago. All right. I couldn't find my copy of it, but what we did was we basically just set up a fairly simplistic website, and I had on my homepage 75 of the most active stocks: Budweiser, Microsoft, Apple, etc. And you could get on the system at any time, and you could choose any one of those stocks. And then the system went out using an API. It went out and it grabbed you the information about that stock. Now, there was probably 100 pieces of information. So no, we didn't grab all 100. We funneled it out or filtered it out and grabbed the name of the stock, what its current price was, what its high price was for the year, what its low price was for the year, etc. All right. But you can do that with anything. And what you're going to find is what you are writing in the AWD1111 class is you're writing your own API in there. All right. So they give another one here about using Pikachu. And this is just an example right here. I don't expect that to make a lot of sense, but that's JSON. All right. Now they say in here, APIs are often referred to as third-party resources What does that mean? That means that if you use an API that you didn't write, somebody else wrote it. So again, you have to utilize it in the way they want it utilized. And they give an example. This is one of the ones we'll do tomorrow. If you're building a weather app, you can utilize a third-party weather API to fetch current weather data rather than creating your own weather database from scratch. The world is full of millions of APIs. All right. And all we're doing is we're tapping into some of those. That's it. And you're learning how to write your own. So, what I liked about this article here, how do APIs work? Right? As it says, when you work with an API, you get a URL that points to someplace on a server. Then you can use different methods or different functions to do different things with that information. All right. You can get that information, which means show it to me, but don't allow me to change it. You can do posts with that information, which says show me that information and allow me to change it. All right. Put also allows you to make changes. And then delete allows you to remove things. Now, with that said, if I go out here to this Pokemon site, and I'm not going to, but if I did, I can grab that information. I can copy it into my program. I can't change their copy of the information because I'm not the only one using it. All right. But I can manipulate it by working with a copy. And that's what they're talking about here. The reason that this is so important, kind of an FYI for you, all right, the reason that this is so important is what you're starting to work with is what are called CRUD applications. CRUD is an acronym. It stands for create, read, update, and delete. Now, with what we just looked at up here, get is a read. Post is basically going to be used with a create. Put is with an update, and delete with a delete. The reason this is so important is virtually everything that you're going to end up working with, intimately or non-intimately, is there's probably about a 90 some percent chance it's going to touch information that's in a database. So you'll constantly be working with APIs so that you can create new information that'll go into a read current information that's in a database, update current information in a database, or delete current information in a database. And that's what they're talking about in here. All right. It says that you send a request to a server. The server processes the request and it sends back data to you in some kind of a structured format. And there's different tools that you can use to work with this. All right. One of them, I think that's kind of a funny name. Insomnia is one that you can use, but the one that I've used in the past, and I think the one that uses as well, is Postman. And you look at the stuff here, and because I've had people say this, I'll never understand this stuff. You don't have to. This is kind of the magic thing right here. If you look, it says 200 okay. That means you made a request and the request went through successfully. That's typically what you're looking for. All right. And that's the kind of thing that you'll be working with in that class. All right. So, as they mentioned here, many APIs are public, meaning they don't require any authentication. You can just go out there and use them. All right. What does that mean? Do you remember this? How we went out to that, what was it? Numbersapi.com. We did this earlier. and we put in that something like this. All right. That's a public API that's open to everyone. Anybody can use it. On the other hand, the one that we'll start with tomorrow, this is not a public API or purely public API. You have to register for an account. Why is that important? Even though we're registering for an account and the account will be free, if I was going to make Jeff's weather service and it was going to be hit on by millions of people per day, somebody wants to make money off of that. All right. Somebody wants to be able to charge me money off of that. And the reason, again, is what they're saying here. Some require keys to access information. You need to sign up to get your own API key. And as it says, you'll include the key when you send a request so it knows who is actually sending it. Now, the other article that we'll look at in just a moment, right here, is they walk you through how to create, and I've never gone out and looked at them, but they go out to the Rick and Morty API and they walk you through everything you're supposed to do here. Now, the author went in later and put in his own bootstrap, etc. So yours won't look nearly this nice. All right. But it's an entire little mini project. All right. So when he says I made a very simple Rick and Morty app, it's the same article that I just showed you. All right. Some of the most widely used APIs, as it says, are related to social media platforms. All right. There's probably not one up there you haven't heard of. So look at the conclusion. No matter where you are on your web development journey, this is going to touch you sometime or other. All right. So, as they mentioned, learning about APIs and how to effectively utilize APIs, as they mention here, it's a crucial step in becoming not a more proficient programmer, I would say, in becoming a programmer. Now, one thing I was going to do, and I didn't have time to go back over it today, I'm going to give you this URL a little bit later. This is a guy, one of many people that I follow online. His name is Brad Schiff. Okay. And he's got a thing in here. This is a 1 hour presentation. No, I'm not going to look at it. No, you don't have to look at it or anything. But if you want to learn a little more about how APIs work, he's written this thing. And like I said, I'll send it out to you. It's an hour and 10 minutes long. And guess what? It doesn't use React. It uses just JavaScript like you've used. All right, I couldn't find my copy of it this morning. But what he does is he goes out to this dog breed API and he writes a thing on it. It really is pretty well done. All right. Now, this is the Rick and Morty thing. So look at it, a step-by-step guide. And it even says 32 lines of code. And they even give you the code. So in this tutorial, they show you how to build a simple React app with the Rick and Morty API. Says if you want to learn more, this is the same article we just went over right there. This one, that one. All right. And it says after 32 lines of code, you'll have a list view showing characters from the Rick and Morty, I guess, TV show. So they walk you through everything. They tell you to come in and make a new folder called Rick and Morty. Then they tell you to change to that folder. Then they tell you to run the npx create react app on that folder. Then they tell you to open it up in Visual Studio Code. All right. Then this is the only right in there. They give it to you. So you can go and highlight all of it, all right, and put it in yourself. This is what goes into your app.js, but they tell you to create a new source folder. And I don't know why it shouldn't be a folder. That should be a new source file that's named characterlist.js. If you want, you could take all of this and just put it in app.js. All right. And they even show you where to put the stuff that you're working with. All right. Then they come in and say, hey, when you start React, this is what comes up. You already know this. Then they tell you to add this. You can delete everything it says you saw in the app.js file, and then you can add that code. Now, this is a little different than the way I did it because they're telling you to create this folder, okay? Or this file, I should say. Then they're telling you to add that file inside of here, right there. Should you care? What they're having you do and what I liked about this example, all right, is they're having you build what's called a component. So they are taking the program and starting to break it down into pieces. All right. So what I decided to do was I'm going to ask you to try to do this. No, you don't have to turn it in. You know, if you say, oh, hell, I'm still working on the test, then keep working on the test. But I'd like you to try this. And then tomorrow morning, the first thing that I'm going to do, all right, is I am going to go through and build this for you. Probably, I would hope, is going to take no more than about 15 minutes. All right. Then when we get done with that, we're going to go in and I don't remember which of these is the right one, so I'll just guess. And we're going to build the React Weather app. I tried showing you this before. It was a cluster. It didn't work very well. So let's see here. So one of these two should work, if not both. This is a background. You could put any image in there you wanted. But if I put in St. Louis, all right, make it there. That's 100%. So you can see what happens. It gives you the name of the city, the current temperature, the current conditions, a little picture. All right. The feels like, so it feels like 17 degrees, the humidity, the wind speed, etc. If I come in and put in a different one, so if I put in Miami, I get that. I change it again and I put in Berlin, like for Berlin, Germany, boom. All right. I've got a daughter who is adopted. All three of my kids are adopted. My middle daughter is from Cartagena, Colombia, South America. Doesn't find that. Okay. Nope, doesn't like that. How about if I just try Brazil, for example, something like that? Finds that, right? So that's the kind of thing that we're going to work on tomorrow. We're going to build that from scratch. If you don't like my background there, you could replace it literally with any background that you want. So tomorrow when we start, I'm going to do this Rick and Morty app with you, hopefully for 10 or 15 minutes, like that. And again, I'll put it out there. Then we're going to do this one. If we get done with that, we'll go into the next one. And the next one will be the movie app. This one is not formatted the best, but it does work. So And you see we've got stuff from Avengers. If I change that, for example, to Harry Potter and I click search, it's got all the Harry Potter movies. If I click on a movie, I get information about that. All right, a little write up, the plot, the director, the cast, and how much it made. All right, that's the plan for tomorrow and probably going into Thursday as well. Now, Friday again will be a lab. Next week, what we're going to do as a class is we're going to build a React CRUD application. Create, read, update, and delete. All right, we're going to build it together. I will ask that you do that as a build along. Why? Because when we get done on Thursday of next week, or if it takes longer the following week, it doesn't matter. We're going to put this thing out on the internet. So you will actually have a working React app that goes out on the internet. When I asked Mr. Gudmested, he said, yep, I'm having students do that. They are required to do that and put that. That's basically the last thing that we do in the class other than their portfolios. All right. So that's what we will be working on for the rest of this week and for next week. All right. So please, like I said, try to see if you can do this Rick and Morty thing yourselves. All right. If you can't, it's okay. But the first thing we're going to do tomorrow is I'm going to go through this step by step. I will save it when I get done. Then we're going to jump right into the weather application. If there's any time left, because I'm only going about 2 hours. All right. If I haven't mentioned it to you before, I'm suffering from bronchitis. I'm not supposed to talk any more than I can than a couple hours at a time. All right. But that's what we'll do tomorrow. Finally, again, I said this before. I want to say it again. All right. The test was due yesterday. If for whatever reason you did not turn it in, you can still turn it in. I got an email the other day from a student who said, hey, I just realized I was looking at my grades and I didn't turn in some of the written tests for the HTML portion of the class. Can I still turn them in? The answer is yes, but they're so late. All right, let's say that you had 10 tests and you turned in none of them. Well, the max you can get is a 5 out of 10 on each one, but 50 points out of 100 is going to be a lot better for your grade than 0 points out of 100. All right, that's the best thing I can tell you. All right, so that's all I've got. I will see you tomorrow at 8:05. You know exactly what we'll be doing. Please try this Rick and Morty app. I will send you the URL and everything. It will be sent out in about 15 minutes. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good day.